Good afternoon, everybody. I am Jonathan from Boredom Sated, and I have myself another build that some of you will like and some of you will complain about because that's how things work. So what I have come up with is a Bard build that is generally overpowered. Now, I want to talk about this quickly. Overpowered in 5th edition D&D is difficult to do because you don't have a lot of choices. It's all about what spellcasting choices you make. It's all about being able to take abilities and combinations and make it so that they work together. So what makes a character overpowered? One, you can do an enormous amount of damage. Two, you can make yourself nearly unhittable. Three, versatility and being able to basically stop the DM from doing whatever you kind of want them to do. So really what you want to do is try to get some combination of at least two of these to make an overpowered character. So that's where we come from with the Bard that I'm going to be talking about. So the Bard that I'm talking about is the College of Swords Bard from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. The College of Swords Bard has a couple of wonderful abilities. First of all, it makes it so you get medium armor proficiency, which is fantastic because it will obviously raise your armor class. And second, it gives you it makes it so you can use whatever weapon you're using as your spellcasting focus, which means that you can be doing that. And it also gives you proficiency with scimitars if you want to use a scimitar. Now, obviously, because of the fact that we want to make this do a lot of damage and we want to make it versatility and all of that other fun stuff, there's going to be some spells that we want to choose to make it so that will be the case. So, first, as a bard, starting at level 10, you can take any class's spells as long as you are high enough level to cast those spells. Any spell casting level you can do. This is where bards kind of get to cheat, because at 10th level, when you can do this, you can cast 5th level spells. The spell that I'm going to talk about here is going to be a paladin spell that they get at 5th level, and only paladins get at 5th level. Because you can steal a 5th level paladin spell when no one else can cast it other than a paladin, and the paladin doesn't even get to cast it until level 16. The spell that I'm talking about is called Holy Weapon. What Holy Weapon does is it's a concentration spell. You put it on your weapon. It makes it so your weapon glows. And importantly, you do 2d8 additional damage with each attack on your weapon. So you just added 2d8 to your weapon damage on your main hand attack, and it's a concentration spell. You can keep casting it as much as you reasonably want because it's your 5th level spell. And it's a lot of fun. Now, also at 5th level, obviously you need to take one of the other spells to make yourself powerful. And if you've watched my other videos, you already know that one of the things that I like to do is give myself a ridiculous armor class. So I'm going to take Shield. Remember, what Shield does is it's a 1st level spell. You can cast it as a reaction to add 5 to your AC until the beginning of your next turn. So, just having Shield and medium armor proficiency by no means makes your armor overpowered. So how are we getting there? So there's a few more things we need to talk about. And the other things we need to talk about are the other things that you get from being a College of Swords Bard. So at 3rd level, by becoming a College of Swords Bard, you get the ability to do two things. One, you get a weapon style. You can either dual wield, or you can, and when you dual wield, your offhand weapon gets to add your modifier damage as well, which is nice. Or you can go with the ability to just make your main hand weapon hit for 2 more damage base. Which method you go with here is kind of a personal decision. I like the idea of dual wielding because you're going to get to 3 attacks pretty quickly. Because at 6th level, like many other classes, you get the ability to get 2 main hand attacks as the College of Swords Bard. So 2 main hand attacks, 1 offhand attack. But Holy Weapon is only going to affect 1 weapon. So having the 2 attacks just do as much as possible is good. However, I also don't really have a specifically good way to get advantage because it's hard to do that without trying to go either super cheesy or something like that. So getting as many attacks as possible is always a good thing. And you can add your weapon, your damage from your offhand attack, so that's there. So that's one thing. You get your weapon style. The other thing, and this is much more important, is when you hit once per turn with a melee attack from the attack action, it is specific in saying that, you may spend one of your Bardic Inspiration dice to have an additional effect happen. Now, one of them is called Defensive Flourish. What Defensive Flourish does is you add your die to your damage roll, but also you add that die to your AC until the beginning of your next turn. So remember, this is just something you do as part of an attack action. Shield is something you do as a reaction. These things stack. So by the time you get to level 10, you have a D10 for your Bardic Inspiration die. You can just add 5 straight up. And we're also going to talk about a couple of feats that you can take to make your AC that much higher. So medium armor, the highest medium armor base is 15 plus, and that is half plate. If you take medium armor mastery as a feat, which will allow you to add to your dexterity, because obviously this build is going to be based on having a decent dex and a decent charisma, although you don't have to max out either one, it helps to max out your dex first over your charisma for this build. What you can do is you can have, with medium armor mastery, you can have yourself have up to a +3 armor bonus from the medium armor, and also it gets rid of the penalty of the stealth penalty for wearing any of the ones that do that, which half plate does. So right there, you've got a 15 armor class plus your 3 armor class for your dexterity, which gets you to an 18. With another feat, because my plan is to dual wield, you can take the dual wielding mastery feat, which one of the main things that does is as long as you're wielding 2 weapons, you get to add 1 to your AC from that as well. So now we've gone from an 18 to a 19. 19 AC is not bad, especially all the time, but it's not anything spectacular. However, now we add the Defensive Flourish die. The Defensive Flourish die is going to be a D10. D10, from starting at level 8 or 9, it becomes, I think at level 8, it becomes a D10. So we're talking about a level 10 character at the very minimum here. And we have now, we have a 19 base AC, we get to add a D10 to that value. Average value on a D10, let's say we get the average 5 or 6, let's call it a 6. So that gets us to a 25. And then we get to cast Shield if we feel like it, making it so we get up to an AC of 30. Well, if you take a look at the monster manual and find a monster at that level that has better than about a +10 up to hit, you're going to not find many creatures that have that. Even like level 15 and 16 creatures have a +12, +13. And you've just gotten yourself, on average, to an AC of 30. So most creatures are going to need a 17 or 18 to hit you. And honestly, if you even look at the highest level creatures in the game, they're going to need a pretty high number to hit you as well. So that's a really strong thing to do. And how hard are you hitting? Well, you can using, if you want to, you can use a D8 main hand weapon or a D6 main hand weapon. Using a D6, but it doesn't really make a difference. So you have a D6 main hand weapon. You add your Bardic Inspiration die for damage. You're adding your Dexterity modifier for damage. You're then adding your Holy Weapon damage, which is another 2/8 for damage. You get to attack with that twice, and you attack with your offhand weapon once. Now, obviously, it's not getting the Holy Weapon damage, but it's still a significant amount of damage. And all of this coming from a bard. And you still, if you need to, have the ability to cast other spells. Now, obviously, my personal feelings on spell casting are going to be for spells that are going to be able to help you in combat if you need them. I'm always a big fan of Counterspell. Sadly, you can't get Counterspell as a regular bard, but again, you can steal other people's spells. At level 14, one of the spells that I would take would be Counterspell. Maybe taking something like Misty Step so that you have the ability to use that instead of your second attack, so you can go in, attack twice, come back out. There's always so many useful things that you can do. You also, unlike the wizard build, have the ability to heal yourself if you need to, and you can just take heal. You can take Healing Word if you want to do it as your bonus action. You can take Cure Wounds if you want to, because you're a bard and it's available. There's lots of other ways to go, but the fact that you can just add the 2d8 damage, again, this is just a concentration spell. There's nothing to it other than the 5th level spell, and it lasts for a while. You can add your Bardic Inspiration die. You can do that. Now, you're wondering maybe you're going to run out of Bardic Inspiration dice. Well, at level 14, you get the ability to, instead of spending one of your Bardic Inspiration dice, you can just spend a free D6 as well. So you can just spend a d6 every round instead. It makes it so the AC is a little bit lower, but overall it's still pretty good. And remember, everything we've talked about here does not even include having any magical items whatsoever. So there's many magical items you can do to increase your AC. There's many magical items you can do to increase your damage. But the main basis of this is you can steal other people's spells. Holy Weapon is a great spell to steal, and Shield is a great spell to make it so your AC gets very, very high. Being a College of Swords bard, you are going to deal significant amounts of damage and still have spells to be able to help your party, help yourself, or do kind of whatever else you want to do with it. You don't have as many good offensive spells as a wizard would, but you have the ability to heal yourself. You have the ability to do some other fun mitigation and put people to sleep. Also, bards have the expertise, so you can add. You can have double proficiency skills. I love having double proficiency skills. I like being skill character as well as being a combat character, and it makes it so that this is a very well-rounded character in the long run. So you've got the feats, you've got everything else. You do the best you can to raise your dex. You want to have a decent charisma, but other than that, there's no real specific way you need to play it. But again, you can have an AC without magic items that gets up to, at level 10, you can get up to an AC of 34. That's ridiculous. There's no creature that can hit you on anything other than a 20 if you happen to have rolled well. The amount of damage you can do is 4 dice of damage on every main hand attack. And that's, again, difficult to do because you can just keep doing it all the time. Warlocks can do more. Other characters can do more, but they have to spend a spell slot each time. You're not spending a spell slot each time. You're just spending the one spell slot. So that's the main gist of this build. There's obviously some other spells you can choose to take. I didn't go that far into it because the spells, other spells are not necessary. I just went with the ones that you like to play with. So if you like the build, let me know. If you don't like the build or if you have any problems with it, let me know. If you've got any other questions, feel free to ask. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you want to hear any other kinds of builds or if you've got any other suggestions that I'm willing to do the research on, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you guys next time.